What's good, everybody? Hope everybody's well. Oh, man. Trying to get it in today. Welcome back to the Onyx Report, where Black male justice advocates uplift Black men and boys using critical analysis. Hope everybody is good. Shout out to the early birds. I'm listening. What's up? Roguish the Billmonger. What's going on? Lewis, what's up? Uh, Electrician 480. Artisan, what's going on, man? Jay Cleveland in the house. Appreciate that, man. Layman's Journal. What's good? Got some stuff coming up with Layman's Journal I'm excited about. But in the meantime, make sure you check out his channel if you haven't already. Shout out to Aquatechy. What's up? Got a number of folks came through early. Good. Indigo Flow. What's going on? Hey, Rue. What's up? Got AL in the house. Yeah. Everybody up in here. Art. What's going on, man? Man. All right. AB. What's going on? Ray in the house. Appreciate that support. Hey, Rue. Thank you very much. You know, Ghetto User. What's going on? Sergeant Willie Pete, what's up, man? Smash the patriarchy. Dead Set, what's going on? Yeah. A number of people up in here already. That's what it is. Like, share, subscribe, join, and donate. Support the channel if you will. So we can continue to bring you this independent black male thought and keep building it up. And today I am joined by a permanent friend of the show, if you will, who will always have an open door here. Shout out my boy BGS. Bring him up in here. What's going on, man?
What up, Doc? They call me the PhD Whisperer.
Hold on.
Okay.
There we
Can you hear
go.
me?
Let me fix this. All right.
Can you hear me?
Yeah,
I hear you.
Yeah,
they call me the PhD Whisperer. That's what they call me.
It fits. Yeah, my mixer's acting funny. So, all right. So we got you in. But you were doing a fabulous show, man. I almost didn't go. I was listening to y'all.
I was waiting on you, so I said, okay, I know whether you're gonna go or not. So
well,
I was just trying to fit one in.
I was trying to, but then every time I started to hit the live button, I was like, damn, they went on to another good topic.
We talk about finance. Might have to, do it tomorrow because they got really deep about taxes, finance, housing, and income and all that kind of stuff. They had like 4 guys that are experts in the field. So
yeah,
I might have to call them back and actually do it again.
Okay. Well, I just want people to know to check out the show if you haven't. I wonder if you could give them just a snippet of, in terms of the purpose, like why you did what the show was and why you decided to do it.
Okay. The thing is that there's a lot of what I call mythology about this space, about this thing we call the black manosphere, right? Especially the 2.0 phase, right? That it's not doing anything, it's not worth anything. We talk too much about women, nothing's going on, it's a waste of time, right? I was trying to say that this 2.0, this black manosphere has exceeded all expectations.
Okay.
I don't think anybody could have dreamed of, I could never have dreamed of this being this successful as far as attention, as far as notoriety, as far as the effectiveness in certain spaces. Couldn't have dreamed of it. So I was just trying to debunk that myth that it's a failure. No, it's not a failure. It's actually a wild success.
Okay.
And then the AMA always gets interesting, especially when we actually talk about what black men earn versus what black women think that we earn, and plus the way black men and women spend their money. Okay. So it got really interesting like the last 45 minutes. Okay. So if you really want to get a good a peek into see some finance geek out about taxes and money and costs and the kind of stuff, like the last 45 minutes is gold over in that channel.
All right. Yeah, check it out if you haven't. Shout out to Barry Little for the support. Appreciate that. Shout out to Christopher Williams for the support. Appreciate that. Also, let me also shout out Shannon F. Holiday and Mr. Fix It for the Cash Apps. Appreciate that.
And we got a lot of content creators in tonight. Y'all, please, if you have a channel, please share the video. Dr. Thunder, you included. Please share the video. We have to start sharing each other's videos because I do a lot. The thing is you get more notoriety on the algorithm if we all share it. Okay, please share the video. Okay.
Appreciate that. Shout out to Dr. Thunder. What's up?
Dr. Thunder, what's up?
Yeah. Tonight we are, I mean, this is, how do I put it? We on automatic in terms of, the rifling, the weaponry we're using tonight. We're just going all out. And what we're going to do is cover and debunk a number of different myths about Black men. And I wanted to get BGS up in here with me to do it because it's a lot more fun, for one, to bounce off of good brother when we're talking about it. But there's a lot of info to cover. So I wanted to kind of get that in. So let me start with, now this came out a couple of years ago, but I still think it's not necessarily common knowledge. So I said, you know what, let me go ahead and talk about it. And when I thought about it, I said, there's a number of things that we need to go ahead and talk about. So if you're not familiar, this is a piece on Yahoo News. New study on drug use confirms what Black people have been saying this whole time. Now, this is dated 2016, right? This is 2016, but I thought it useful to cover. Let me see. Okay, I got to do it this way. All right, I thought it useful to cover so we can get through some things. So this is just going to be where we start, but we're going to look at a number of different pieces of information that are focused on debunking stereotypes about Black men. All right. So let me get some of this out of the way. Shout out to Real Talk Rodney Dunn. Appreciate the support. All right. So the first one up. All right. So we can read through a little bit of this. A recent study published in the American Journal of Public Health found that delinquent non-Hispanic whites are more likely to abuse hard drugs such as cocaine or opiates more so than their Black counterparts, which might be news for some Americans. But for many Blacks across the nation, the study confirms what was already known. Now, I actually did pull up the study, so I'll show you guys that in a minute as well. But for now, we could just go through the article. The study, which took place over 12 years, found that the rates of hard drug abuse was highest among non-Hispanic whites, followed by Hispanics, then African Americans. The research found that whites were more than 30 times more likely to have cocaine use disorder, 50 times more likely to develop opiate use disorder, and 18 times more likely to have PCP use disorder than Blacks. Now, I don't think that's common knowledge. I don't think people are aware of that. And the article is going to delve into some of that. But just right off, what's your immediate reaction to that?
I mean, this is something I've known since I was first went to my first white school back in, I think, 1968, 69, right? It's always been the case. But we were always the face of drugs and hard drugs. But white kids would use way more drugs, from children always all the way up to adults. Same thing, right? So, but the thing is, they don't often admit it. It's actually a very closely held secret.
Absolutely. I think the article is going to delve into a little bit of that, but not necessarily from the vantage point of somebody who was an adult, especially during the war on drugs era. I was a kid.
Right.
So I saw elements of it. Hell, I was in the middle of elements of it, but as a kid, it was just my reality.
Yeah.
And, seeing it as an adult is a whole different thing. But let's continue here. It says those findings are striking, considering the widely accepted stereotype of African Americans as the most prevalent abusers of hard drugs.
Right.
Linda A. Teplin, professor of psychiatry and behavioral sciences at Northwestern University and author of the study, said in a statement, "Our findings add to the growing debate on how the war on drugs has affected African Americans."
Right.
Researchers studied more than 1,800 delinquent youth and followed their lives through their late 20s. We found that African Americans are less likely than other racial ethnic groups to abuse hard drugs, yet African Americans are disproportionately incarcerated for drug crimes.
Right. We are the most policed. We're actually the most policed.
Indeed.
Okay. Yes.
Indeed. Right. Says, however, some people pointed out that the study's findings were already somewhat acknowledged, especially among Black people. Jonathan Wall, a law student at Harvard University, started a thread full of studies that can easily be confirmed by Black people. And he kind of lists some of the information from the thread. See some of that there.
Yeah. And in the Black neighborhood, we get jail, they get drug clinics.
Absolutely. They get swatted on the hand at best.
Yeah.
Let me go ahead and I will share the actual study. I want people to, not only see the article, but actually see the study itself. So here we go. American Public Health Association, Health Disparities in Drug and Alcohol Use Disorders, a 12-year longitudinal studies of youth after detention. right? So this is pretty extensive, and this is the portion here I wanted to read aloud in the conclusion section, right? It says the Department of Justice estimates that among males born in 2001, 1 in 3 African Americans and 1 in 6 Hispanics will be incarcerated at some point during their lifetime, compared with 1 in 17 non-Hispanic whites. Racial ethnic minorities are disproportionately incarcerated, especially for drug crimes. More than 2.4 million youths and adults are currently incarcerated in the U.S. Every year, there are nearly 1.4 million arrests of juveniles. More than 250,000 cases result in detention. Substance abuse is a significant problem among youth in the juvenile justice system. More than 90% report having used illicit drugs. Irrespective of sex or race and ethnicity, substance use disorders, SUDs, are the most common psychiatric disorders among delinquent youths. 49% to 76% of males and 34 to 77% of females have an SUD. Right?
Wow, women are a little bit higher. Okay.
Yeah. Find the quickest way to sift through some of this, because I want to get right to where to go. Oh man, I misplaced it. Dang it. That is not what I wanted to do today.
All right.
Here we go. See if I can find more. I think I misplaced the damn thing. All right, my bad. So this is the actual study itself, though, but I will put, matter of fact, I don't know if it'll pull up if you guys link it, but I'll put it in the chat for anyone that might find it of use to sift through yourselves. And this is basically what the article we just read was based on. So you see the breakdown of those kind of things. So I just wanted to kind of point that out as a starting point for tonight, right? Like I say, this is what is this, 7 years old? And I've heard people kind of mention it, but I haven't seen them actually kind of, put out the actual link. So I just wanted to kind of put that out. And matter of fact, I will also put the link for the article. This kind of stuff tends to disappear, so
it does.
It does. I'm trying to get used to my Evernote and start using that more effectively. But
Evernote is your friend, I'm gonna tell you.
Yeah. All right. So we'll stop those, and then go ahead and there we go. So let me put some of this stuff up. All right. So this is the next one, and I'm just going to go at these one at a time. They're in no clear order. We're just shooting straight at stereotypes, right? So this one is probably one that's been pretty well covered in the spaces we circulate in, right? But this was the study done on the question of being the most involved dad, right? I don't know. Can you guys even see that?
Put a one if you guys can actually see that.
I'm not sure if it's large enough, but
they'll work with it.
All right. Okay. So let me see here.
You go on full. Go take it. Go at full screen.
It is. I don't. When I click
on basically hit what is either solo. Hit solo. Yeah, that's big enough. Yeah, that'll do.
Oh, you're talking about that one?
Yeah, that one. Yeah.
All right. So there we go. All right. So let me see. I should have pulled up the fit. So let me see if I can. Here. All right. Anyway, so if you can see the kind of the study as it's broken down here, this is a breakdown of Latino, white, and Black men. The orange line is Black men, and it breaks down the percentage, according to the National Center for Health Statistics, of which fathers, right, spend the most time and are most involved with their children, right? So we can see the breakdown here for children under 5 and children ages 5 to 18. Overwhelmingly, in each category, I should say most consistently, you tend to see that Black men remain in the highest categories. Now, you've broken this down. I think you've done videos to this, right?
Yes.
Right. What's the most pushback you tend to get when you post this kind of information?
Really, it's less pushback. It's more about surprise.
Okay.
Because it's You've heard about it, but the thing is, we always get the things that we're actually the worst deads or the the uh, uh the most abandoned, right? But thing is, it's actually the opposite.
Mm,
So you, you tend to hear more surprise that I didn't know that, you
yeah.
know, and then they actually go and wave it in black women's faces too. So you get that. So
Well, shout out.
I hear pushback mostly comes from the women that they don't
Yeah.
believe it. Yeah.
Shout out to Geechee, man. That's that man. That moves me to hear that. I hope you're doing much better, bro. What I've gotten, yeah, it has been from black women, and one of the things that I've heard, especially right after it came out,
Mhm.
most was, well, I don't agree with the studies because that's not what me and my girls talk about.
Right.
So,
Yeah.
you know, and I'll just be like, okay, so it's you and your girls versus the National Center for Health Statistics.
Yeah.
Okay, you
Yeah.
know,
Yeah. Which normally they're lying. So.
well, anyway,
When they say me and my girls, okay, but
well,
they don't include the girl, their rowdy friends or their raunchy friends. They exclude them. They always
it's
cut them out.
yeah.
Well, my cousins, and my auntie, they all do that. But my circle of friends don't do that.
Mm. Yeah. See, Dead Set says much of the pushback I've heard on the issue is that they say it was all self-reported and that the men are lying.
Mm-hmm.
The thing about studies like this is that when you're covering a large population of men, to have a coordinated effort amongst so many is really not realistic. But
Mm-hmm.
of course, whatever they can do to kind of shame it, they're going to do. But
Mm-hmm.
I just wanted to put this up because we get a lot of new people in. We get people that have heard bits and pieces, and so we don't all always have the same information. So I wanted to do a show where we could really just kind of break down some of the things some of us know, share some information. If we got some new information, do that as well. Shout out to
Mm-hmm.
Samuel for the Cash App. So here's another.
Mm-hmm.
This is dealing with the top 10 leading causes of death. And there's a lot of different things we could talk about on this, but this is for Black women. Right? Shout out to Artisan MC in the house. What's going on? He's been doing reviews of the episodes of The Last of Us, so go check him out on his channel. If you've been watching the series,
Mm-hmm.
check out his reviews. I think he's doing by episode, so
He's doing episode by episode. Yeah.
yeah. So support the show. But this particular chart is for Black females, and it's 1999 to 2019. Right, so it's 20 years of the top
Mm-hmm.
10 leading causes of death. Now, one of the popular stereotypes going around was that for a few years ago, and I still hear it casually kind of referenced, is that somehow Black men are the leading cause of death for Black women.
Mm-hmm.
And that abuse, is so rampant in the Black community, or I should say intimate partner homicide is so rampant that Black men are, as I've heard it stated, killing Black women in mass.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I wanted to kind of show you. So you can see homicide. Homicide are all the red squares or rectangles here for the ages 1 through 44. Right? Those are for the ages 1 to 44, homicide does fit within the top 10 causes of death for
Mm-hmm.
those for that age range. But if you go all the way over to this right category, this right column that says all ages, these are the absolute
Mm-hmm.
top 10 things that kill Black females from 1999 to 2019. And one thing you'll notice is that homicide is not in this top 10 by any measure.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Not there at all. Starts at heart disease and ends at influenza and pneumonia.
So pneumonia kills more women, black women, than homicide. Okay.
Absolutely. And as a good sociologist friend of mine told me, he said you got a better chance of being struck by lightning or dying in a flood than being killed by an intimate partner. So I just want to put that on everybody's radar. Shout out to Dusty Nuts. He says if I'm quiet, I'm learning. Appreciate that. But just wanted to kind of point that out. So even if you look at the numbers here, um, 22, I'd say, you're dealing with somewhere around 20, 25,000 in general. That's across 20 years, across ages 1 to 44 years old. And that's not just intimate partner homicide, that's any kind of homicide, right? Those are the numbers. When you look at Black men, this is the Black male chart for the same time period, 1999 to 2019, top 10 causes of death. Homicide is number 5, right? But again, we're talking specifically about the stereotypes about Black men being homicidal monsters to Black women, right? Now, I know you've heard this critique before, right? You've heard this accusation.
Right.
lobbied at black men? What do you
Yeah.
usually tell them?
Number one, the data doesn't support it. Okay,
Hmm.
number one, and number two, um, it's been proven that it's bidirectional.
Absolutely.
It's number
Absolutely.
two.
Yeah, and
Uh,
we're gonna get into a little bit of that, but you're absolutely right. But
yeah,
what else
yeah.
you gonna say?
And the thing is, well, I was here for, especially from intersectional feminists, that the most dangerous thing to black women is actually black men. Okay,
Hmm.
and I always
Hmm.
tell them, well, go date somebody else. Okay.
No. You know what I tell them is the most dangerous thing to black women is not only is it not black men, it's really like McDonald's.
Which is true. If you look at it, the heart disease, okay,
Yeah, black
heart
men don't
disease,
sit on McDonald's.
yeah, heart disease, and cancer. Yeah.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So, we like I said, we just picking through. And if there's anything else in here you want to comment on, just let me know before I move to the next thing.
And but the thing is, the funny thing is, I noticed this with this chart, that heart disease is the leading cause of death from ages of 35, man, for black men, and
Hmm.
it doesn't show for black women as leading cause of death until they're 65. I
Absolutely.
just it shows you how much stress black men are under.
Yeah. I'll go back. So this is the black women's chart.
Hmm.
And you can see at 35, it's about 23,000, black women that have died due to heart disease.
Hmm.
It kicks up to 61 when you
Hmm.
get over the age of 45. It kicks up to 104 over the
Hmm.
age of 55. And then it kicks up over to 567,000 over the
Yeah.
age of 65.
65, yeah, when they're it's basically old age.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it becomes the number one killer at over the age of 65, right? You go
Hmm.
to black men, it
Yeah.
becomes the number one killer as early as 35 years old.
Yep.
And the numbers overall, so 769,000, 781. It was only a few years ago
Hmm.
where black men, the numbers for heart disease pushed past black women's, because
Hmm.
before it was more that you kind of had more brothers dying earlier,
Hmm.
and so they weren't even reaching the age where heart disease became a factor. But then that changed probably about 5 years ago.
Hmm.
Numbers for black men kicked up higher. So I just wanted to put that out there so we can actually clarify some of these myths about black men, right? Okay, so this is the next one. We can deal with intimate partner homicide. Now, we hear a lot of rates and stats about how often black men kill their partners and this and that.
Hmm.
Now, I've already showed you, right, that homicide is not in the top 10 causes of death for black women. But here are the actual numbers, right? According to the National Violent Death Reporting System, 2018 and 2021. These are the actual numbers. So you can see it for the first line, 2003,
Hmm.
57 black female victims, 22 black male victims. Now, this is also mitigated by the number of states that report.
Right.
And the reason the numbers keep going up as you go down in this list is because more states report. But keep in mind, this is the data that people are referencing when they make these statements about black men.
Hmm.
So how long? So you've been, Well, I'll just ask you, how long have you been hearing that black men are the worst thing in the world of black women? That black men are the number one killers and all that. How long have you been hearing that trope?
Oh man, my whole life.
Yeah,
My
yeah.
whole life.
But if we go to 2003, which is the first year they reported on this, talking
Mm-hmm.
about 57 black
57
women.
people. Yeah.
Yeah,
More black men died of the flu than from
yeah.
black men killing them.
And when you combine both numbers for black male victims and black female victims, what are
Mm.
we talking about here? About 79 people? That's out of
Yeah.
40, what is it? 43 to 46 million. I can't remember
Yeah.
which one it is now. 40,
Yeah.
46 million black folk.
Yeah.
We're talking about 79 people. Hey, so when my sociologist friend said you got a better chance of being struck by lightning than
Yeah.
being
You do.
killed by an intimate partner,
Yeah. You do.
this is what he's talking about.
Hmm.
2017, you got 172 black female victims, 93. Now that sounds like a huge difference, but again, when you measure that against 40 plus million black folk, what are
Hmm.
we really talking about?
Yeah. Yeah. And we're not even talking about LGBTQ uh, female and female victims
Oh yeah, which LGBTQ numbers are higher.
or higher.
This is
Yeah.
for lesbians,
Yes.
right?
So that's built into that female victim stat.
Absolutely. And keep in
Hmm.
mind too, when women hire assassins, and and I've said this plenty of times, if you look
Hmm.
at the works of Warren Farrell. He talks about this even in the early 1980s. He
Mm-hmm.
said wealthy women hire assassins, poor women use sex.
Mm-hmm.
Especially with younger men. They use sex to manipulate younger men into killing for them. So you got a
Mm-hmm.
woman that wants to kill her husband, she'll either hire an assassin or she'll use sex to manipulate another man to
Mm-hmm.
do it. If he's successful and he's caught, really all it gets recorded as is one man killing another.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Unless he's caught as an instigator, which is, I would argue, fairly rare, those numbers don't get calculated as intimate partner homicide.
No.
I would argue the number of men that are killed would be higher if we actually had information on when women hire assassins.
Yeah, we should. I wish we could actually do one on proxy violence.
Indeed.
Instigated by females, because that's the
Absolutely.
most common.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. Now, you'll notice in 2015, 10 more states reported, so the numbers jumped up a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
It's not necessarily is to say that the number of people killed grew. It was just you have more states reporting. But here's 2018 and 2019, right? And even now we're by 2019 we were up to 42 states reporting.
Mm-hmm.
Look what we're talking about.
Yeah, they always use the percentage. Okay.
Yes,
To actually exaggerate the number of people actually killed.
absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
And they'll tell you that black men kill more black women by ratio than other
Yeah.
groups kill their women.
Yeah.
But what I found when I studied it as well is black women kill more men than other groups of women kill their men.
Yeah.
So that's something that can be lobbied both ways if that's important to you,
Mm-hmm.
if you really have to make that. But I like to show the raw numbers just to put it in context. We're literally talking about a couple hundred people out of 40 plus million.
Right.
Yet black men are measured against the smallest, infinitesimal group possible. Right. This is right up here with serial killers, and this somehow becomes a reflection of all black men.
Yeah.
Right. So I just kind of wanted to put some raw numbers in your face so you can kind of, contextualize these myths and accusations. Right. Let's go ahead and move to the next. All right. So this one has to do with black men being exonerated, found innocent even after having spent years in prison. Of the 75 innocent death row defendants who spent 30 years or longer in prison before being exonerated, 67% were black. The racial pattern is similar for all murder exonerees, regardless of sentence. The report notes, this is coming from deathpenaltyinfo.org in September of 2022. Any thoughts about this? You got 67% of those found innocent on death row were black.
And but that's the myth of the black male criminal. That a lot of times they what they call the usual suspect. Black. This how you actually see this. They get railroaded a lot of times. Well, that's been the case. It goes all the way back to Jim Crow, where they just we believe he did something, and you actually get hung or get disappeared or get put in prison.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. It's easy to accuse black men, one, because when you talk about media, when you talk about stereotypes and the degree to which media has helped to shape and make those stereotypes a reality for people, the idea that black men are murderers, it just comes across as, easy. It goes like bacon and eggs. Peanut butter and jelly. It just goes together in people's minds.
Yeah.
But as we've had DNA technology, develop, one of the things we find is that more and more black men are found innocent. And this is not something that people are, for the most part, aware of in many instances. So I like to keep that information, right there on front page. As a matter of fact, and this is how frequent this stuff is. This just ran across my desk earlier today. Hold on, let me. And convicted. Wait a minute. I don't know if this is actually going to play. Hold on. I don't know if the sound will come through. For some reason, I'm always having trouble with that. Here we go. I don't know. I know you guys can probably see it, but I don't know if you're going to be able to hear it.
Try it.
Let me see if you can.
Just being in prison.
We can hear it.
You can hear it?
Yeah.
Okay. Oh, where'd it go? Oh, where did I thought it was on the screen? Where did it?
It was, yeah.
Okay. Let's try that again. All right. Let's see if it'll let me play.
And convicted of a rape charge. You know, I mean, it's a blemish. It tears you down. It destroys you.
53-year-old Sullivan Walter of New Orleans, Louisiana, spent 36 years in prison for a crime he didn't commit. When he was only 17 years old, he was accused of raping a woman and threatening her 8-year-old son. Even though the woman didn't get a good look at the rapist, Walter was accused.
One of the officers, an officer at the NOPD, saw the composite drawing and said, "Hey, that looks like Sullivan Walter. Let's see if he fits as a suspect in the rape case." And then it was, I think, an inadvertent misidentification by the victim of the rape.
During the trial, an expert testified about semen left behind. It didn't match Walter's, yet he was still sentenced to 39 years in prison. The Innocence Project was able to get the DNA evidence re-examined, clearing the way for Walter's exoneration.
My blood type showed that I was the total opposite.
Walter was wrongly convicted when he was just 17 years old, making him the 5th longest incarceration of any juvenile in the United States.
I'm not angry. I'm not looking for anyone to be punished, but I would like for what is broken to be fixed.
All right. Any thoughts about that, brother?
I mean, how many times do we actually hear this? I mean, there's so many. It happens so often, and it happens so much that it's just common.
Yeah.
So seems like every year you actually hear something like this, where guys been in for 20 years, 30 years, 40 years for something that he didn't do. And basically, black youth, actually most vulnerable. We're actually disposable.
Yeah.
So they need to clear their books. Go get a black guy. Go get a black kid. Put him on trial.
Yeah.
Nobody will actually believe you. Yeah.
You got brothers talking about anger. I hear you, but you know, just to defend him a little bit, he's been sitting in a cell for 36 years.
Yeah, 39.
Excuse me, 39. He had to let go of the anger, or else it would have ate him alive. That was the only for him. I think it was a survival mechanism. But I agree that we, as a collective, should be angry enough to challenge this. But he, as an individual, that was a survival method for him.
Yeah, you're the sacrificial lamb for the whole culture, the whole country.
Indeed. And just on another tip, when's the last time you saw a brother wearing an afro? I mean, he has been.
He's been in there a while. Yeah,
he's been in there a while, man. But and I'm actually not being flippant. I'm serious. He's so disconnected in a certain respect. But that's the reality, right? So I just wanted to kind of again put that there.
Just like the story you did, I think last week, right, about the guy dying from cancer, was getting out. Just so happy to get out of prison. It didn't matter that he was dying.
Didn't matter that he was even dying. Right? Okay, so like I said, these aren't in any particular order. We just shooting down myths. So this is the Child Maltreatment 2020 report. Right, again, going with the stereotype that black men are the most dangerous, even to their own families. So, and this is something I've heard for decades. It's not only that they kill their own women, they kill their own kids more than any other demographic. Now, you tell me, am I imagining that, or have you heard that?
I've heard it, and normally it's not the actual father of the child. It's normally the boyfriend. If it does happen.
When it does happen.
When it does happen, it's very seldom the father, the biological father.
Yeah. Well, let's see what the Child Maltreatment 2020 report broke down. And I've done shows on all of this, but I thought I'd just consolidate a good portion of this in one show. Right. So it says most perpetrators were 18 to 44 when it comes to those who actually did, delete their children. So most perpetrators were 18 to 44. They were a parent. They were female. Now, in terms of race, there were more white than black. Well, because the numbers anyway, and killed infants younger than 1 year old, more so by neglect and physical abuse.
Right.
But the primary victims were more often than not boys. Right. And so it says 504 black, 560 white, 1,750 children in all. says nearly 90%, 88.1% of child fatalities are one of three races: white at 38.7%, African American at 34.9%, Hispanic at 14.5%. Using the number of victims and the population data to create rates highlights some racial disparity, right? So the rates of African American child fatalities, 5.90 per 100,000.
Right.
This is 3.1 times greater than the rate of white child fatalities at 1.9 per 100,000, and 3.6 times greater than the rates of Hispanic child fatalities. So you have a smaller number of Black children killed, but a much higher rate. And the reason that that's important is because, again, remember the population size.
Right.
Right. When you compare the populations of white versus Black versus Hispanic, for Black children to be in the same range, the 500 range in terms of the number of children, that should tell you it's happening more.
Yeah.
But to put it another way, there's about 500 kids per year that are killed according to this report. And at no point in the breakdown of the primary perpetrators do you see Black men.
Right. Yeah.
No. We are, so, again, just to put clarity to the accusations, this is not something that fathers are doing.
No.
Right.
Very seldom. Very seldom.
Very seldom. And like you said, tends to be boyfriends when it does happen.
And when it does happen, tends to be boyfriends.
Yeah. Especially if there are drugs involved. You know what I mean? In the household, you'll often find boyfriends. But anyway, so again, just to kind of put that there. Right. And here's another related to that. This is actually something I found on Dr. Stacy Patton's Twitter, I think last year. Child abuse fatalities and perpetrators by gender among African Americans. All U.S. states. This is 2015 to 2020. Right. So you got total Black child fatalities, 3,146. This is a 5-year period. Right. And I'm going to start from, I'll start from the far right. So you got Black female perpetrators, 2,106. Black male perpetrators, you got 1,692. Right. You got Black female victims, 1,334. Black male victims, 1,812.
Wow. Okay.
So the reason I showed you guys this chart, this is National Data Archive on Child Abuse and Neglect, NCANDS child file. The reason I shared this is to show you which kids have actually been dying. Now, it shouldn't be any kids. I mean, it's sad for me to have to point that out at all, but I find it interesting that Black males are dying in noticeably higher numbers. So much so that it needed to even be pointed out. Right? 1,800 Black male victims as a result of this. And the other thing, of course, as we already covered, Black female perpetrators are the highest. So in essence, what the numbers are showing us is that it's not Black men that are killing their children. It's actually more Black women, and Black boys tend to be the children killed more often than not.
Yep.
Right. And it stands to reason. And I think, Sergeant Willie Pete is saying it in the comment section. We don't have custody to be the primary killers. More than custody, we're not child. We generally aren't the child care providers, but I don't mean the child care industry. I'm talking about we're not usually hands on.
But you notice with the perpetrator, they're not necessarily parents.
They don't have to be. Right?
Yeah.
They can be child care providers. They can be, but even in that context, they tend to be more women.
Even there. But the thing is, what boosts up the males is that the women are actually the mothers, but most of the perpetrators are actually boyfriends.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. So even the numbers that we're seeing there that are higher than we would like them to be often aren't fathers. But I think
our fathers,
But for a good 5-year period, this clarifies a pattern where you actually have, those who actually provide more of the child care services, be it in a household or in society, tend to be women. And, but the interesting thing to me about this, the first time I saw it, I had never seen data that pointed out that Black male children tend to be the victims more often than not.
Shout out to Stacy Patton.
Shout out to Stacy Patton. Black Guru Strikes says the trend over the 6 years of the Black female deaths is flat, but the trend of the Black male deaths is increasing. Isn't that a trip?
Economic stress, yeah.
Economic stress, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I wonder how much identifying with your own gender may play into this on a subconscious level.
Or hating your no good daddy. Okay.
Uh-oh. Uh-oh. There we go.
Nah, I didn't say that. Okay. Strike that.
Strike from the record. Huh? Oh, that one's staying in there. Yeah. Yeah, that's real. Now this one was one that I've shown before. It's a study that deals with intimate partner violence that I think is drastically underestimated. It's a 2012 study,
Mm-hmm.
right? But it's important for a variety of reasons that I'll cover. But this is entitled Rates of Bidirectional versus Unidirectional Intimate Partner Violence Across Samples. Here, I think the best way for me to show this before I delve into the numbers is where did it go? There it is. Let me see if StreamYard will work with me real quick. And there, I think there was they've been adding so many different features now. Oh crap, now I gotta go in here and look for it. Okay, 1 second. I think this is important because I think it'll really kind of just drive it home for many. They're not gonna let me show it. All right. They're being extra. Wow, it's not even coming up there. Interesting. Oh, there it is. All right. All right. So real quick. So many of you, I don't know if you guys have seen this one bouncing around social media, right? And this is across race, but what it shows you is when you look at all relationships at the bottom, 84% of relationships are nonviolent.
Mm-hmm.
Of the 16% that are, right, we find that 42% of that 16% is violence coming from one gender to the other. And 58% of that is bidirectional, violence coming both ways. And then when we look at the unidirectional, meaning one gender extending violence to the other, 28% of that is female, 14% of that is male. I think the reason men are more associated with violence is men tend to use their hands, and of course, men tend to be stronger.
Right.
So the evidence of violence is more apparent on women. Right? The evidence of violence is more apparent. It gives the illusion that men are the initiators, but you actually find women are. Women tend to use weapons. Women tend to use a lot of verbal abuse, these things, and women tend to usually strike first. But you know, that's it. But the reason I'm showing you this is this actual chart actually comes from the study I'm referencing. Right? So it comes from the study I'm referencing, and that's where they pull it from. But the study has some other interesting components to it. So this is partner violence across samples, sexual orientations, and race/ethnicities, a comprehensive review. The reason it's important as a comprehensive review is it's not just a study. It's a study of multiple studies going back decades. So it's a meta study.
Okay.
Study of the studies. Right? And some interesting information in here that I thought you guys should see. It says this procedure. So Black men suffer from unidirectional violence to the greatest degree.
Wow.
According to this study that we just looked at, this is what they produced. This procedure resulted in retaining 7 epidemiological and population-based studies with a total of 82,836 sampling units, 44,930 females, 38,906 males. One of the things I see people doing when they argue against stats is they try to diminish the numbers based on what we don't know. So they'll say, oh, that just came from a study of 40 people.
Mm-hmm.
I wanted you guys to see, no, this came from a study of over 82,836 sampling units. That's how many different people, right? Almost 45,000 females, almost 40,000 males. So just to put that out there, this is not a lightweight study. This is a meta study of a variety of studies. Because among those reporting IPV and using weighted averages across these samples, 57.9% of the violence reported was bidirectional, right? Correspondingly, 42.1% of the violence reported was unidirectional. So this is going over what I just showed you guys in the chart. Now, hold on. Let me... There we go. This is part of the same study. This is the same study. This is table 8 in the study itself. And what it shows you is for each group, white, black, and Hispanic, rates of bidirectional and unidirectional violence, right? So if we stick to the 3 columns in the middle, we're looking at the black community, right? And you can see, and all of these listed on the left are the various studies over the years. Now, they used more than this. They use more than this in this study. But what they're showing you is that in terms of male to female violence, 8% in the first category, 12%, 13%. They break down the percentage of male to female violence. Female to male violence, what do you notice in this third column?
Much higher.
It's higher. Right? And so when you look at the bidirectional violence, again, the majority. So what it's saying in this first column is 61% of the violence in the black community, according to this Satano study in 2005. 61% of it is bidirectional. 8% of it is male to female. 31% of it is female to male. They do that for each of the studies. This is how exact and particular this analysis is. And what they've come to more than anything is that women initiate violence more, even in the black, especially in the black community.
Right.
Men initiate it less, and the majority, I didn't mean to do that. And the majority of the violence is bidirectional. Any thoughts about that at all, bro?
It doesn't surprise me. Klingons. Okay.
Yeah.
Doesn't surprise me at all.
Yeah. But again, these are things that we've reflected on, we've talked about, we've assumed, but we didn't always have the studies. And most of the studies that we tend to find tend to be, I would argue, fundamentally focused on women's experiences. So many of them, even in terms of funding, are geared around women's experiences, and you generally have to dive into the details to find the data on males.
Yeah, there's less of a penalty when women actually become violent, whereas men, you're going to jail, and men know that. Yeah,
even if it's evident that she's been violent, there's no guarantee she's going to be the one to go.
Right. So men tend not to raise their hands towards women, not in this country.
Absolutely. So, again, even though this is a 2012 report, it's covering studies that go back to the 1980s. And it's dealing with almost 90,000 people. So when you really begin to look at how that study breaks out, this is important.
Yeah.
Because not only does it show you that men are different than how they're characterized, but also that black men find themselves on the receiving end of abuse far more than on the extending end.
Black men are most vulnerable to this kind of stuff because there's less of a penalty preventing it. So and black women know that we're not going to jail. You're going to go to jail. We've seen that.
Oh yeah, and that's the not only proxy violence, but when you're actually willing to use law enforcement in a way that is more often than not going to be a threat to a black male's existence. Right? When you're willing to call the police on them just because you're upset, knowing full well where it can go, versus if he called the police on you. Right. I mean, black men find if they call the police on a woman, they might get arrested.
Yeah, I remember that day. I think was it Cleveland, where the wife had the knife to her husband's throat, and the husband wound up getting shot.
Yes, sir. Yeah, the son, I think, called the police at his father's request. Police showed up and shot him, even though she had a knife to his throat. And then they took her to the hospital to make sure she was okay. But she was the murderer. She was the murderer. But I got another one that, again, this came across my desk today. And this is a brother that's dealing with the very thing we're talking about. So you guys tell me what your thoughts are about this. Here we go.
What a motherfucker got to go through. Hard worker, man. This is what I got. This is what I got to deal through with somebody like this. Somebody that's disrespectful. You know what I'm saying? You see what I'm saying? This is the type of shit you got to deal with, man. When a motherfucker work hard every motherfucking day.
I work hard every day. I go to
every
work
motherfucking day.
I pay my own dues.
Every motherfucking day.
Fucking car note.
Right?
I'm the reason
every
why
motherfucking
you got
day.
that fucking house.
Yeah, whatever. Oh, you can do that? You can do that? What you mad about, though? What you mad about, though? What you mad about? What you mad about? This is what I gotta do with. So anybody that see this shit, just know this for a witness.
That come run up on me.
Yeah. Look at her ugly ass. The other fat as a bitch.
Yeah, I'm fat. I'm doing all this. I'm doing all this.
And she got 3 baby daddies. One of them tried to kill her.
Yep. And I'm fat. All this shit. Yeah.
One of them tried to
And
kill
all
her.
my baby daddies still trying to marry me. How you doing? How you doing?
I'm
They
done
still
with
trying
you.
to marry
You
me.
already done with.
They still trying.
You boyhead as fuck. So you already done with. Ain't nobody gonna want to fuck with you.
They still trying to marry
Ain't
me.
nobody gonna.
Yeah, but you in the car with her. Kablock. Okay.
Yeah. Any thoughts about that, brother?
That's Klingon love, man. That's Klingon love. Typical. But he's still in the car with her. She's still trying to probably gonna have sex with him right after they get home. The way she rubbing on him. Kablock.
Yeah, this is, you know, but I wanted to show you
the battered wife.
Well, and I wanted to show you, you know, a face to some of the stats we're looking at, because for some people, you know, numbers get to me when presented like this. When I can see the relationship of the numbers between, you know, different experiences, that does something for me. But for some people, it's just a page with numbers on it. I want you to see what this can actually look like. And the thing about it is, far too many brothers, even the brothers listening to this stream right now, watching this stream, have had experiences that are close enough to this shit.
Yeah.
They've had enough experiences, whether they're going to admit it publicly or not. There's too many brothers that have had similar experiences. So we can laugh at this cat all we want, but some of y'all know you done been him on one level or another, in some fashion or form, you know. But I just wanted to put face to some of these numbers, because part of the reason she could behave like that, is she knew that she's likely not going to go to jail, no matter what happens. Even if she does, she's not going to suffer anything near as much as if he had put hands on her in a way that was clearly evidenced. If she was the one sitting there bleeding,
yeah, he'd be in jail. Yeah,
he'd be in jail.
No
She's
question
not in
asked.
jail. Even if he calls the police, she's not in jail. And I've known women to get out of jail while the man that they assaulted or shot was still in the hospital.
Yeah.
Still in the hospital. He ain't even healed from what's happened. She's already out. So I wanted to give some clarity to some of these numbers and put a face to it. I didn't put him up to be laughed at. I put him up to point out this is what some cats are dealing with. And I hope more and more Black men are walking away from this kind of violence. Because I think some cats believe that these are all the options they have available to them.
It's normal to them. That's just Black women. That's how you show love. Abuse is love. A lot of guys do. He shouldn't even be in the car with her, much less talking about her.
No,
that shows you that he's not going anywhere.
Well, I don't know how old this is, and I hope he's gone from this. And Uru hitting again. He said, and clearly she's done that to him many times.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, but I wanted to put a face to that.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
And he said she had another baby daddy that almost killed her. So she's a violent person.
Right. Yeah. So this is the next one up. And this one is a slide that I use in my classes. And the reason I'm putting this up in terms of cancer, prostate cancer in particular, and heart disease, the reason I show this is because I hear a lot about breast cancer. I hear a lot about women. And I remember this is actually this came about from a conversation I had with Tommy. And I don't remember how we got to it, but we were just casually talking about cancer. And he was like, well, the rates for men are much higher.
Yeah.
The thing about it is I had never heard that at that point. I had never heard that information. So just to I know it's hard to see the two charts. They're kind of small. I apologize for that. But the chart on the left is for males. The chart on the right are for females. And one of the things you may not be able to see clearly is on the side, it has the rates per 100,000. Starts at 0 at the bottom, goes to 350 at the top. The women's numbers in the red line are Black women. The yellow line are white women. You got green is Asian. And I think blue is Pacific Islander, and then Hispanic is brown. So the highest line there are Black women, and you see it's right around a rate of 200 per 100,000. Black men's rates range from 350 in 1999 to about 275 in 2011.
About almost double. Yeah.
So black men's are higher, right? In terms of prostate cancer, African American men are more likely to develop prostate cancer compared to Caucasian men and are nearly 2.5 times as likely to die from the disease. Seen above, cancer rates are even much higher in black men than in women, although scientists do not yet understand why prostate cancer incidence and death rates are higher among black men. It is widely believed that it is a combination of genetic differences, lifestyle, nutritional habits, and medical care may all play a role in the statistics. We've already talked about heart disease on the top 10 causes of death, but it is the absolute leading cause of death. But I wanted to point out in terms of cancer, for everything we hear about cancer, the only time it's gendered in pop culture and the mainstream media is when it's dealing with breast cancer, right? And here's the rub: black men can get breast cancer.
Yeah.
So even though women far outnumber men in terms of breast cancer, men can get breast cancer. When it comes to prostate cancer, unless you're gonna start playing with trans folks, ain't no women getting prostate cancer. Ain't no women getting prostate cancer. But anyway, so I just wanted to point that out. When you start to look at the data around cancer, you find that black men, not just men, black men in particular, numbers are higher, right? And so I also want you guys to see why we do the kind of stuff we do. Shout out to Cedric for the Cash App. Appreciate that generous support. Thank you for that. I wanted to show you why I'm so driven about black men, because I know these stats. And oh man, Uru's dropping it tonight. He said Richard Roundtree has breast cancer.
Yeah, he did. Yeah, that's back maybe 25 years ago. Yeah.
Oh, I had not heard that. Wow. Yeah, it's only like somewhere between, I think it's like around 2%, 2 to 4%, somewhere in there of men that get breast cancer, especially in the black community.
Yeah, it's rare.
It's rare, but but it is nonetheless. It's ironic that men and women can get breast cancer, and we fixate on breast cancer as a gendered issue, but only as it pertains to women. Meanwhile, prostate cancer is higher, and nobody really, like, when's the last time you actually saw sporting events where people were wearing ribbons to raise funds for prostate cancer? I don't see it. I don't see it. Right. Shout out to Pi Mai, says gotta have a prostate to get it.
Right. Yes, you do.
And I would urge brothers to stay on top of that, which is something I need to do at this point as well, is that you can forget about it for a period of time, but stay on top of it. It's nonetheless something men experience more. So any final observations before I move from here?
No, I mean, the most vulnerable people actually are the most ignored.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's black men. I mean, how many times we have to see stats like this?
Yeah.
But to get no attention.
Shout out to Mr. Black ADOS, says my homie died of breast cancer 25 years ago. Oh. Yeah. You don't see that in the news though.
No, very, very seldom. Very seldom.
Look at this. You see, this is what happens when you show black men. Look, the ribbons will be brown, right?
Oh, you ain't shit.
I mean, trying to share information with others.
You can't take them nowhere.
Can't take them nowhere, man. Anyway. So like I said, this is just random. We're just covering point by point. Now, many of you may remember this. This came from a popular study a couple of years ago performed by Raj Chetty. One of the things he discovered is when it came to black males and wealth, that black males, which you can see by the hot pink dots on there, tend to drop out of the upper class in much higher numbers than any other demographic.
Right.
And fall to lower degrees than any other demographic. Now, there were a lot of aspects to the study. I've done a show on it. I know BGS has covered it.
Right.
But I thought I'd just include this graph just to give you a sense of it. And this was actually an animated graph. So this is a still of an animated graph, but it just kind of shows you overall that when it comes to wealth, black men tend to fall out of wealth to higher degrees than any other group. And when they fall, they don't bounce back as much as others do. I mean, in another part of the study, it even showed that black women's status was highly dependent upon black men's.
Yes.
And basically what happens is if you're born into poverty, black men especially tend to stay in poverty to higher degrees than any other group.
Yeah.
And you're born in the upper class. But go ahead.
Just below white women, believe it or not. white women, if they're born into poverty, they tend to stay in poverty. So black men, white women, and black women, white women and black men have that in common. Very class sensitive, and like you said, then black men can tend to drop out of the upper class or the middle class.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And this is I didn't actually pull the study up, but you can find it pretty easily if you put in Raj Chetty, RAJ, last name CHETTY. You should be able to find this study pretty easily.
Brookings Institute, I do believe.
Brookings. I should have included it in here. I didn't. I apologize, but you can find the animated version of this chart pretty easily.
Yeah, I think
see it for yourself.
Yeah, I'm trying to think. It was the Atlantic or the Wall Street Journal. I can't remember. I think the New York Times. I think that's what it was. I have to go back and look at it.
I can pull it up quick. I'll do it. If not, then I'll leave it to you, good brothers. You Google masters. Yeah, New York Times.
Yeah.
Let me see if it'll. Because I think the animated chart is on this page. Let me see.
Yeah.
So extensive data shows punishing rate of racism for black boys. I will include the link in the chat for those of you who are interested in looking at it. And there it is right there.
Yeah.
This might be
how they drop out of the upper class.
Most white boys raised in wealthy families will stay rich or upper middle class as adults, but black boys raised in similarly rich households will not.
Yeah, the wealth doesn't transfer over like it does for white men.
Exactly. And I think this is important data to look at too, because sometimes I hear us being overly exuberant about dismissing the whole question of systemic issues and just making it all about individual drive. But these are the systemic issues. This is how systemic practices impact individual black males.
Right.
And I think it's important that we understand how these things happen. It can't all just come from personal uplift and bootstrapism. It can't. At some point, you have to deal with the environment you're in and what actually happens. I don't know why this is I don't know if there's more than one animated chart, but I just wanted them to see the progression of it because it's still going. Right. But you can see the breakdown. Right. Following the lives of 10,000 boys who grew up in rich families and where they end up as adults. That's 10,000. So when people want to dismiss what you're saying and say, "Oh, that was just a couple hundred people," no, that was out of 10,000
over a long-term study.
Yeah. Now, the reason Chetty's work was so impactful a few years ago is because it really did show that this is gendered.
Yeah,
it's not really about women and girls; it's about men and boys.
Yeah,
large income gaps persist between men, but not women. You see the breakdown here on the left for men, breakdown on the right for women. This really dovetails into Jim Sedanius's work about the subordinate male target hypothesis. The impact that when you really see one group oppressing another, it's usually men on men. The women have a very different experience. Right. So, and I think there's another study, there's another article on Chetty's work, and I think it's called "It Is About the Boys" or something like that.
Right.
You see a black boy in the cover.
Right.
So, share of children living in low poverty neighborhoods with many fathers present. See the breakdown there. 63% of white kids, 4% of black kids. Share of children living in high poverty neighborhoods with few fathers present. Right. So you see the breakdown there. 1% of white kids, 66% of black kids. So he even quotes William Julius Wilson. So here another animated chart for poor children. The pattern is reversed. Most poor black boys will remain poor as adults. White boys raised in poor families fare far better.
Yeah.
So this deals with being able to get out of poverty. This is what I hear, even in the manosphere, the most about. We just need to pull ourselves up by our bootstraps. We need to John Henry it, stick your chest out, make it happen. Well, this is the reality. This is the reality. Any thoughts about that, bro?
No, it's pretty common. Well, it's racism, white supremacy, right? That's in action, and plus the affirmative action that you're supposed to get for black males never came across actually went to white females. So a white male that would actually marry a white female will actually get out of poverty. Like I think you actually did a short on that. That $1.75 that goes to white people,
Yes, sir.
white families. Okay,
Yeah.
that's two lower class people getting out of poverty.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. The dollar white men earn against the 75 cents that white women earn, when they marry, it's $1.75. We tend to stay apart.
Yeah.
You know, and so employed black men make slightly more than black women.
Yeah.
But when you factor in incarceration, we're the only group of men that make significantly less than our women. Because most of these studies were never geared to take into account incarceration. Incarceration is not supposed to impact economic studies.
Only people that earn an income actually get registered, but you have what 25% of black men that don't earn an income because of crime, because of poverty, because of former incarceration. So yeah.
See, now Uru keep dropping bombs from the comment section. I'm like, man, you gonna have to come up here in a minute. It says in a wealthy white family, most of the investment and training will be with the sons. In a wealthy black family, most of the investment and training will be with the
daughters. Yep. The gynarchy. Yep. That's very true. I see it in my own family.
Exactly. But they'll tell you that since boys don't have to wash dishes as often as they can come home later at later times, they're more privileged.
Yeah, yeah. Well,
they
the thing
get more
is,
social freedom.
Yeah, it's called neglect. They don't, the mothers don't care.
Damn.
They care about the daughters. They care about the daughters being out at night. They care about the daughters getting into trouble. The boys, they don't care. It's called neglect.
Absolutely. Yeah. Now, this is an interesting one. Share of the men incarcerated on April 1st, 2010. The blue dots are black males. The yellow dots are white males. And it goes from there. And I don't think it's an accident that you don't even have women on the screen. The incarceration rates for men and women are so varied as far as that. It makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah.
The sons of black families from the top 1% had about the same chance of being incarcerated on a given day as the sons of white families, earning $36,000. God damn.
Go ahead, Hasan. Let it go.
Nah, man, I don't. Did y'all hear that at all? The sons of black families from the top 1% had about the same chance of being incarcerated as the sons of white families, earning $36,000 a year. Come on. This is the shit I need us to understand. This is the shit I'm talking about, because I hear people say, well, why are you always focusing on the data? Why are you always talking about this? This just is about victimization. This is about reality. I'm not talking about this because I love victimization. I'm talking about this because this shit is happening, A, and B, there are far too few spaces where this is being talked about bluntly.
Yeah.
Where the data is being shared unapologetically.
So it doesn't matter about class as far as the justice system.
No. Class doesn't change a goddamn thing. It doesn't change a thing. If you can be in the top 1% and still have as much chance as going to jail as poor white folk, then really, when we're talking about class privilege, what are we talking about?
Oh yeah, well, race is a class. We keep forgetting that. I don't care how much you earn. Race is a class. And we get the John Henry folks talking about there's a level playing field. I don't see it. It doesn't look like it from that chart.
Oh my God. I wasn't actually planning to go over that. That just kind of happened, but it was timely, so I ain't mad about it.
Right? A sign will chop.
Percent of children married in 2015. So you can see white men at the top, see black men and women at the bottom. Right. So, it's nothing new there. Income gap exists for black and white boys if they had one parent in the house or two. That's interesting. Right. So the solid color lines are two parents. The faded lines are one parent. And you notice a difference in both white and black groups.
Yeah. But the black group, the starting point is less. And you can actually see by the chart that the black boys, as they fall further.
They fall further.
Yeah.
And they rise higher at the end with fathers in the home.
Yeah.
Interesting to note as well. Right. So this Raj-Chetty study is incredibly important. High mobility rate for Asian Americans is partly about immigration. Chetty himself, I think he's Indian.
Yeah.
Not mistaken.
Raj, yeah. With a name like Raj, it better be.
I'm guessing, but sometimes I'm surprised. So, but again, I put the link in the chat for this. I think it'd be good for you guys to, if you haven't looked at it, or even if you haven't seen it in a while, to revisit it. Right. All the lives of 10,000 boys who grew up in the U.S. This is a different one for the same kind of breakdown, I think. But I think that, the other one was showing us those who were rich and falling out of wealth, or those that were poor and where they ended up. This is showing us across class at each level what happens to 10,000 boys over the years, from childhood to adulthood.
Yeah.
I can't stress how important this is enough. Yeah. So Rogish says this is humbling. This is what I'm talking about. This is why I'm here. I'm to talk about this, because I think it's important that we keep what's actually happening to people. See, I'm not talking about data just to use the word data. I'm fucking talking about what is actually happening to people beyond our opinions or anecdotal stories. I'm not going to tell you about what happened to my boy when we were 15. I'm going to show you what the data actually says. And when I get people, and this tends to be feminist, when they say, well, the data can be manipulated. I agree. It can be. But here's the thing. It's harder to manipulate data than it is to manipulate whatever the fuck comes out your mouth.
Yeah, but they don't say that when the data actually helps them.
Yeah, exactly.
Like the wage gap, which is false. Okay.
Yeah. When the data works for them, the data is cool enough to use. When it's against them, the data is manipulatable. But the thing about it, too, is any data point you disagree with, you can find other studies. And when you look at enough studies, you can have a basic understanding of what is approximately happening with people. But when you just say, well, divorce is high because, all my friends got divorces. I mean, that logic of what happens to my friends is evidence of what's going on with everybody. Falls short, right? And I'm just saying, when you actually look at the data, it kind of keeps us honest. It forces us to, engage something beyond our own experience. So I just wanted to share that with you guys, because I think it's important when we talk about this stuff that we move, past just personal anecdotes and stereotypes and opinions, and actually look at what's happening on the ground. And that, to me, if you're going to develop a strategy to respond to it, which I do want us to do, we have to first understand what the hell the problems are. And if we're so lost in fantasy that we can't get to the actual problems, then the problems, the clarification on what those are and what our solutions are going to all be rooted in cartoonish fantasy. You got to start with the reality. What's happening on the ground with people? Now develop a strategy in response. And I'm not saying I have all the answers. I'm just clarifying the problem. I'm looking at the data for what it is, and I'm trying to eliminate stereotypes, conjecture, and get to the real. I have some ideas. The one principal thing we talk about on this channel is the black male political agenda. That is often that everything on that is in response to this data we're covering.
Right.
But this is why I also invite people like BGS, who has a standing invitation to the show. And I'm often grateful that he uses it, right? Because he has a strong understanding of the data and has decades of experience with it. This is why I invite the kind of brothers that are in the chat. I don't want just a bunch of people up here talking about bullshit. I want intelligent brothers like the ones in the chat who have something to say about this.
Yeah. And plus, Clark and Moynihan was saying this back in 1965, that black boys escape poverty for one generation only. They tend to fall back.
Oh shit!
They've been saying this for like 60 years. It's not new. Clark has been saying this since the 50s. Yeah, but how vulnerable black males were actually to this kind of economic stress.
And I'm not covering that information to make people feel bad or to stamp out hope. It's simply to say, all right, if you know that this tends to happen, then if you know that the majority of Black folk who attain wealth tend to lose it in a generation, then by God, if you attain wealth and you know that this happens, you have a better opportunity of not losing it if you're aware that it happens. That's all I'm saying. I'm not trying to make people feel bad. I'm not trying to say there's no hope. I'm not trying to say there are no solutions. To me, in order to have a solution, you got to first understand what a problem is. There can be no solution if you don't even understand what the problem is.
Yep.
And I find that most of us don't understand what the problem is.
Yeah.
Because too much of the time we're talking about how we feel, we're talking about what we saw, we're talking about stereotypes, and many of us have been raised. The reason I'm doing this very episode is to challenge the stereotypes that most of us were raised with about us.
Yeah.
About us.
Yep.
But let me.
Yep. Well, we have the advantage of being male. Okay, this is the Black patriarchy in action, right?
Yes. God damn. You want to see? You want to see what patriarchal privilege gives us?
Okay.
This is a breakdown of school suspensions.
Okay.
Now the reason I bring this up is because I've had several debates over the years, right? Where I've had people disingenuously make the argument that Black girls have it worse in school and they get kicked out more than anybody. And really, when you delve into it, what you find is they get kicked out more than white girls.
Right.
That's the issue. They get kicked out more than white girls. What tends to happen, and this is data from the Office of Civil Rights. This is 2012. But what tends to happen is you have feminists that will kind of eliminate the boys because they argue the boys get too much attention. Black boys and Black men, they get too much attention. We got to focus on girls. So the way they do that, and this especially goes to Kimberly Crenshaw and the African American Policy Forum, they'll put data on the screen and say, girls get kicked out. They get suspended more than anybody. And really what they're saying is they get suspended more than white girls.
Right.
They just won't mention Black boys. But I want you guys to look at the data so you can actually make sense of it when you hear these kinds of dismissive statements that don't include Black boys. The next time you hear something about, K through 12, suspensions, expulsions, any of that, and you don't hear Black boys being mentioned, something's wrong. So, Black girls do get disciplined far more than white girls. Black boys almost double everybody.
Yep.
And there's data to show us that based on how the teachers behave, every kid can be acting out, but it's the boys that get singled out more than anybody. Even when they're not acting out. As a matter of fact, they're viewed to be older than they actually are, as young as 4 years old. They're treated like they are older, even when they're 4. I remember I even had and I don't mind anecdotes from time to time, but notice I'm giving you an anecdote with the data on the screen. I'm not saying we shouldn't use anecdotes, but we should always contrast it with what's measurable. But I remember I had my son in daycare when he was real little, and apparently, and he was 2. He got into a fight with a little girl that stole his toy. Right? And this was a Black woman running this facility, so out of her house. So I came to pick him up after school, and she pulled me aside. She said, "Look, your son can't come here anymore."
Wow. Okay.
And I said, "Okay, well, what happened?" He hit this little girl. That's all she said. He hit this little girl. I said, "Well, what's going on?" She said, "Well, they were playing with a toy, and he hit her." Okay. So it took me a while to get out of her. The little girl walked up and tried to take the toy he was playing with, and he hit her. And she said, but this little girl, she's only 2 years old." And I looked her in the eyes and I said, "So is he." Now, my son has always been 99th percentile for height and weight, but he was still 2 years old. They were the same age.
Yeah.
But she didn't see a 2-year-old little boy you know, having a fight with a 2-year-old girl that took his toys. She saw a grown boy who beat up on an innocent little girl.
Yeah, a
That
baby.
was her vantage.
Yeah. Beat up on the baby. Yeah.
Beat up on a baby girl and
Mhm.
kicked him out at 2 years old
Wow.
from a daycare facility.
Mm.
Right? These are the kind of narratives we're working with. Yeah, Clutch and Stick said he was 5 in her mind. Right. Yeah, you might as well put a mask on him and have fun. You know, like he just, you know, came out of a gang.
He might have had a beard. Might have had a beard. Had a beard on.
Yeah. They both 2. He's 2 as well. And she just completely, and the funny part is when I said, it's not funny really, when I said he is 2 as well, her face didn't blink. It didn't change. She looked at me like I was speaking a foreign language. Like, what is anything you're saying relevant? Is anything you're saying even relevant? I mean, it wasn't even a question. She was basically saying none of what you're saying is relevant. Right? Because she was in protection mode for this little girl who was accosted by the big bad boy.
Yeah, big bad black boy.
Right.
With a lethal weapon.
With a lethal weapon. Right. His hand. And when you looked at it, wasn't none, she didn't even have a mark on her. They were 2. It ain't like he could form a punch when put his hip into it. It was, you know, she didn't have a mark on it. As a matter of fact, they were playing when I walked in with each other. Anyway, Uru said we should use this data to create an overall quality, I think he meant quality of life measurement, and allocate these measurements based on race and sex. Then use the results to push back against feminism and intersectionality.
Then we have to go back to Moynihan, where it said the black boys are actually the most victimized in this country,
which seems to be reinforced by Raj Chetty and Richard Reeves. And you know, if you don't want to believe me, you don't want to believe Tommy Curry, you don't want to believe any of the other black male studies scholars, you got white and other scholars that are well renowned and regarded who are saying the same exact things.
And I think do believe Chetty's study was like a 10-year study.
Yeah.
It wasn't overnight, and he drew from all kind of data from the IRS, Social Security system, everybody, you know.
And at least covered white, black, and Asian groups. Now I like Uru's idea. I'm just laying out all of the different categories that can be explored. And again, this is not placed in any order. I'm putting it this way. The categories I'm covering tonight, I literally just cobbled together as they came into my head. So they're not in any particular order, but we're just going issue to issue, and we're debunking stereotypes about black men. This one is dealing with, or black men and boys. This one is dealing with suspensions. Let's see what's next. I don't even know what's next. Shit. Let's see what's next. Okay. So this one, this is actually a chart that I put together a few years ago. I'm gonna give you the context for it. Right, the police homicide in black community by race and gender. I didn't do this arbitrarily because I think a lot of this information is available. I did this, and I think it was 2020 when I made this, because it started to go. It started to get real popular on social media for some reason, and I don't know what sparked it at the time, where people were saying that trans men were the most killed by police. And what they were doing is they were trying to offset the attention that straight black men get for police homicide. And they were, of course, always frustrated with how, you know, they were always making the argument that black women are downplayed. But this was the first time I'd heard them say, well, trans men are the most killed by police. So I said, all right, well, let me look this up. So I went and looked at the national epidemic, fatal anti-transgender violence in the U.S. in 2019. And what I found was 3% of the 20 to 26 annual transgender homicides across race per year were police initiated. 3%. So what 3% of 20 to 26 people is basically for black trans men, or excuse me, I'm sorry, black trans women. What it generally tends to be. Well, actually, I'll just say black trans, put it that way, because it's what the trope is, that it's black trans men. These are biologically born females that consider themselves men. They tend to get shot by police, but I'm really only talking about like 1 or 2 cases. They get shot by police because they're presumed to be men. Black trans women who were born biologically male aren't shot by police very much. So when you talk about 3% of 20 to 26, you're talking about one person every other year. That's what it is. It's about one person every other year. And then I looked at the Washington Post and I looked at the Guardian because they tracked information on those who were killed by police. And from 2015 to 2019, you see the numbers there. Now these are conservative numbers. This is based on police reports being filed and properly added in. I argue that the numbers are actually much higher. But even if we go with the accepted data, it's about 200 to 300 black men per year killed by police. It's about no more than about what is it? It's about 9 to 13 black women per year,
right?
Roughly, and then trans is one person every other year. Shout out to Dusty Nuts. He says, co-optation. We're dealing with an organized and vocal minority of folks. We have the funds and means to undermine. People need to wake up.
Yeah. Well, they want to keep the focus off of black men. Everybody wants to keep the focus off of black men because that's where the need is. The thing is that money flows where the eyeballs are.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. So the downplaying of black men. I'm not just saying that white society or even black women just woke up and decided to hate black men because it's Tuesday or Wednesday. No. I'm saying they are following the money. See, they know the more attention black males get, the more people ask the question, why are we funding non-black male oriented issues if black males have the worst numbers?
Right.
So this is where you get a Kimberly Crenshaw, the black feminist who originated the concept of intersectionality. Right. This is why you get her coming up to say, well, black girls are suspended the most. Without qualifying it against boys. She's doing these kinds of tactics to make sure that resources focus on black girls primarily.
Lies of omission instead of commission. Yeah,
absolutely. Absolutely. Lies of omission. Absolutely.
BLM does the same thing. Lies of omission.
Absolutely. So I just wanted to clarify the reason for this. I know you look at it and you just see number of black men and women killed by cops. Now that was twofold. Because at the time, well, no, I should say it was several years earlier, but I knew feminists that were subtly making these little digs at black men by saying things like, remember her name. Remember that campaign? Was it remember her name? Hashtag?
Yeah. Say her name.
Say her name. Thank you.
Yeah.
Right. And it was a subtle dig at black men, but I was like, I can't articulate it, but something feels like somebody's kicking me in the nuts to say this, and I didn't know why. Right? So they would start playing with rates. Thank you, Sigma and Stardust. Say her name, absolutely. And so what I started to do, I started to post these kind of numbers on social media.
Ooh, okay, you got a lot of hate.
And the feminists hated it, but they couldn't say anything because I included women, right? So they said, say her name, and they wanted me to focus on women's data. So I said, okay, you're right. We should definitely do that. So I put the data on the screen for men, for women, and they would just kind of subtly look at it and not say anything.
Yeah. Was that Rekia Boyd, if I'm not mistaken?
What?
Say her name.
I think so.
Yeah.
I think so.
Yeah.
But that's one way we can respond, fellas. When you really start to hear this, put the data on the screen. You know what? Yeah, let's make sure we do keep the focus on black women and men, boys and girls.
When you have 6 black women versus 230 black men.
You see what I mean? And you'll notice the conversation gets real quiet real fast. And so when you get up and see, again, we talk about flat blackness. If you get up and say too many black people die at the hands of the police, you can say that. When you put something like this on the screen and then you say too many black people die, now you're really making more than one statement at the same time. You're clarifying that these numbers by rate are higher than other groups, but at the same time, if feminists want to toy with the numbers to eliminate black boys from receiving any kind of support, this is the way to slap back at them without having to, to be direct. You just there's the numbers. Okay, we're gonna remember everybody, right? Yeah.
Yep.
Says Breonna Taylor and Sandra Bland is where that.
Sandra Bland. Okay. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Sandra Bland. That was the name.
Yeah. Say her name. So I decided to focus on women, on trans and black men, and this was my way of saying y'all are playing with shit at the expense of black men and boys because you really want to secure resources. So if you're going to secure resources, which I think kind of happens more so than it does for straight black men, you're going to have to secure those resources with the data right on the screen. Now reach across that and go get your check, but you're going to damn well have to do it in the face of the data that I'm going to keep in people's face. Because for me, every time you ignore boys, black boys, I see my son.
Yeah.
That's how I do this. I see my son. So you want to take resources that he's never even got out and away from him, then you're going to have to do it with this data being made available to everybody.
Right. Exactly.
Right. So let's see what's next. Okay. So this one is real simple. This is a breakdown of black faculty in colleges.
Okay.
And the reason this is important is when we talk about, and I said this in my last show, I talked about how black feminism is reproduced because what we see in the academy is an overwhelming number of girls and women that are going into higher education. And, you know, I talked about this in terms of Grambling University. I talked about this in terms of Howard. But we could talk about predominantly white institutions as well. When it comes to black folk going to school, we know that since 1976, black men have half the degrees black women have. It is what it is. Black men have found other ways to make money. But here's the problem. It's not just that they found other ways to make money. It's that we were pushed out of academics in K through 12. And we were forced to find other ways to make money. It's not an accident that you have over 90% female teachers at some grade levels.
Right.
So this has a correlation to how students perform that nobody wants to talk about. And boys across race end up performing more poorly than girls. And in that, black boys at the bottom of that list. So I don't have a problem if black men didn't want to go to college, that would be fine. But that's not what's happening. Black men are being pushed out. Black boys are being pushed out before they even get started. They tried to put my son in special ed in kindergarten.
Mine too.
Kindergarten. Yeah.
Mine too.
And this boy was reading 700-page Harry Potter books in the first and second grade. And they wanted to put him in special ed. And they would have succeeded if I wasn't at the campus as often as I am, because I had more time than the average working black family, black parent. I had time. Whenever they, fucked with him, I got time today. I'll show up. But I noticed how many other black kids didn't have the luxury of parents that could drop what they were doing and show up on the spot.
Yeah.
So had I not had that kind of structure, he might have been routed into special ed. They didn't have a problem with doing it. But I bring this chart up because it shows you the number of black faculty, right? So this is 2011, but this was the study that I know that showed the percentage of black faculty in higher education. So you'll notice this is black women. This is Asian, black, Hispanic, and white, but we're in American Indian, Alaska Native, but we're going to look at black women. There's about 70,375 faculty, or that's the number, and that's the total number. So 70,375 black female faculty on college campuses. So remember that number, 70,375. This is black men. 47,651.
Wow. Okay.
Right. So when we talk about 70,000 versus 47,000, the way this plays out, you got, what is it? Howard has 70% of its population black female.
Yeah.
When you have a preponderance of black girls and women going into higher education, and then a preponderance of those women who are primarily the faculty there. Yes, there was, at least in terms of 2011, there was a higher percentage of black males who were tenured. Right. Slightly higher. So you got 7,776 black males who are tenured, fully tenured, like myself. And then you have, I'm associate, but anyway, then you have 6,681 black females. A lot of that I think has to do with child rearing, whatnot. But at the end of the day, and this is what feminists will focus on, there are more men that are tenured. That's what they'll tell you, but they won't tell you that there are over 20,000 more black professors, black female professors than male. And when you factor that in with the percentage of black women and girls who are going to college as opposed to their men, now you have a preponderance of black women in a higher educational space. That supposedly translates to white collar employment and even into politics. Right? How many politicians you know don't at least have a college degree?
Mm-hmm.
And this is the jumping off point for being able to move in the white collar world. This is happening primarily amongst women and girls
Mm-hmm.
in a way that's not happening for boys and men. And this is something we need to focus on. So I wanted you guys to know, according to the only study I'm aware of on the actual numbers of Black faculty and staff, Black men are about 23,000 fewer in higher education. I want you guys to have that information, right? Anyway, so just to kind of put that out there, that speaks to why we see feminism so rapidly and rampantly spreading in higher education. Because it's not just that it's primarily girls that are going, it's also that those who are teaching them, especially if they're Black, are overwhelmingly women. And when you start to factor in their ideology, feminism translates much easier among that population. And you can see why you'll have Black male faculty that will acquiesce to the dominant feminist ideology because they are outnumbered.
Outnumbered, yeah.
If you try to get hired in a university, guess who's sitting on the hiring committee? Look at the numbers.
Yeah.
If you're trying to get a job, especially if you're in Africana Studies, Black Studies, often the majority of the people on the hiring committee are going to be those who are in the highest percentages.
Yeah.
They're going to be women.
You would think they would, because they know the plight of Black men, they would be more patient and more giving to Black men, but it's not the case.
No, this has become a political coup for Black women, and what they're doing is they're tying together the different spaces where they can exact that particular that coup. So higher education, we're starting to see a higher preponderance of Black women in politics, going and going for office. Whatever space you see that is predominantly female, they are operationalizing and politicizing to advance themselves.
Yeah.
They are not opening the door for Black people. They are opening the door for themselves.
For Black women. Yeah. Well, they consider Black people, Black women, and children.
Exactly. Black males are on their own.
Black males are on their own. Yeah.
Even when and the thing that trips me out about this is a lot of these women don't have sons.
Yeah, till he's 18, then becomes a Black male.
Oh man, I can tell you, I can give you the names of feminists who will, in their own cities, set up Black girl magic organizations for young women and girls, and they don't even have daughters, but will have 2 sons, both of whom are homeless, strung out on drugs, dropped out of school, but she's setting up Black Girl Rocks organizations for girls she doesn't even have in her household.
Oh, she needs to find a working wife for her sons.
And then if you look at it in terms of entrepreneurship, one of the things you'll tend to find is Black women will set up businesses that primarily cater to each other.
Yes.
They will literally set up businesses where their primary customer is other Black women. And of course, we know over 99% of Black women's businesses have 1 employee. So their focus is only on each other. Black men actually have more businesses, even though they're not credited for it, but we don't tend to get federal or philanthropic support.
No. Yeah, Black men tend to have trades, okay? And we don't list our trade or our hustle or our independent self-employment work as a business.
Right.
I do plumbing, I do drywall, I fix on houses. It's not a business, it's more like a hustle. But it's women listed as a business.
Women listed as a business, absolutely. But even when it is a business, or we acknowledge it as such, you don't often hear these Black men say this is a Black-owned business, or this is a Black male-owned business.
Yeah.
And I think, and you can correct me if I'm wrong here, my assumption is that we don't get any props for it being Black male-owned. If it's Black female-owned, it's celebrated.
Yeah. It's celebrated, yeah. A Black male-owned, it's almost like a kiss of death.
Exactly, which provides no incentive for Black men to want to go out there and scream to the heavens that we have a Black-owned business.
Oh no.
If anything, a lot of brothers just put their head down, keep pushing, do the work.
Yep.
And you'll notice that when you look at like the title of their business, if it's something completely void, it'll just be something that sounds real generic. Then brothers know what they're doing.
Yeah.
Because there's no benefit that they get for pointing it out. They don't get a benefit for that.
Yeah. Kiss of death. Blackmail business. Yeah.
Okay. So let me push past here. Let's see what else we got. So we got the male rape information sheet. Now this is older. I made this a number of years ago because I wanted to consolidate all the data I was running across on Black men and rape and put it in one document. And I can send you guys this. I need to remember to put this in the description box so you guys can remind me if I don't. I don't think I have it set up right now to do it. But here's a couple things. So just to kind of let you know. So from 1930 to 2000, well, first and foremost, you can see the first bullet. 2.78 million men in the U.S. have been victims of sexual assault or rape, and that was known in 1998.
Yeah,
but nobody talks about that. From 1930 to 2012, the FBI defined forcible grape, I guess you got to say that on YouTube, for data collecting purposes as the carnal knowledge of a female forcibly and against her will. So understand the importance of that. The very definition of RAPE is that it is the carnal knowledge of a female.
Yeah.
So what kind of information are you going to get on males when the very definition of the act is tied to female bodies?
Yeah.
They ignored generations worth of data about men because it didn't fit the definition. Right? Then it says eventually localities began to rebel against that limited gender-bound definition. And in 2010, Chicago reported 86,776 cases of grape, but used its own broader definition. So the FBI left out.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Finally, in 2012, the FBI revised its definition and focused on penetration with no mention of female or forced.
Yeah.
Right. And so if you go through these various bullet points, you'll see various data points. I'm not going to go through all of them right now. But the one thing I want to put up to you is America incarcerates its citizens more than any other country in the world.
Right.
And that said, when you put because I think at the time I did this, there were about 200,000, I think it was about 220,000 women incarcerated and over 2.2 million men.
Right.
So when you add in prison, right, and there was a new category called made to penetrate that was created in the last, decade or so because it had to, account for, what was really happening versus what people wanted to define, grape as. And I say in the last bullet point, when you add up made to penetrate cases, grape by the new FBI definition, and prison sexual assault / rape statistics, men, statistically Black men especially, experience grape at much higher rates than women annually. Now, part of the reason you'll never hear that, or at least you haven't heard that anywhere else, is because nobody wants to add in prison numbers. But more importantly, nobody wants to take resources away from women. Women have cornered, feminists in particular, have cornered the market on data around sexual assault and RAPE.
Yeah.
This is the underlying reason why nobody wants to talk about males, because if you really start to put the numbers out on males, somebody will have to ask at some point, why is all of this money and all these resources only going to females?
Exactly. All those nonprofit organizations that depend on that kind of money.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So again, when you add up the different categories, and most importantly, when you add in prison data, it changes the discussion in ways that even academics and scholars don't want to deal with. Now, there's a line here. If you go up to, let me see. This is about 4 bullet points from the bottom. It says the CDC finding that women grape men as often as men grape women. Now, this is actually a quote. And I got into an argument with, I don't know, I think he's a sociologist. I don't remember what his particular occupation is. He really went off on me. And this is why, right? Let me go ahead and show you this. That quote is actually pulled from a time.com article.
Okay.
The article's title, CDC's grape numbers are misleading. Right? And when you go to the actual quote, right, it says, and now the real surprise. when asked about experiences in the last 12 months, men reported being made to penetrate either by physical force or due to intoxication at virtually the same rates as women reported rape, both 1.1% in 2010 and 1.7 and 1.6% respectively in 2011. In other words, if being made to penetrate someone was counted as rape, and why shouldn't it be, then the headlines could have focused on a truly sensational CDC finding that women grape men as often as men grape women. So the scholar I was debating with said, "Well, you cited it as a CDC finding, but that's just what they said in the magazine in the time.com article. That's not the CDC statement." But you'll notice the reason I read the sentence prior is it shows you the numbers at the end of the sentence, and that's why the journalist made the statement. So he's right. I should have listed and I actually did cite the article when I made that bullet point statement. But he's picking on a small little issue to deflect from the reality that men do actually experience this in much higher numbers than we were told. So in case you couldn't see the screen, you know, this is the sentence here I'm focusing on. I will put the link for this in the chat. Those of you who are interested in looking at this article, this was the only article I found from Time of its kind. And since this article, which was written in 2014, I haven't seen anything like it since.
No, you would probably won't.
They ran from this. Once this article was posted, they ran from this like the plague.
Yeah, they did. Yeah.
Because they weren't just focusing on men in prisons. They were actually, when you talk about made to penetrate, they were also showing the ways women engage in it. It was just, and I even saw stats that scholars, feminists would put up to say 99% of rapes occur from men to women. But that's one of the reasons they created the made to penetrate category, because they were discarding so many different accounts that didn't have a classification formally. But when they finally started to include them, they found that the numbers were almost equal. This means that from 1930 onward, men's experiences were eliminated from the discussion. So think about that. If there are almost equal rates, and keep in mind, men have not been socialized to report this the way women have.
Yeah. They get laughed at. Yeah.
Yeah. So if the numbers are almost equal and men haven't even been socialized to report, what would happen if we could actually go back from 1930 onward and present the real data?
Yeah. Women would actually be looked at differently.
Very much so. Very much so. Let me see. Let's see. Where did it go? Hold on. Okay. Let me pull this out. Shout out to LAPD SWAT 1. Says, why are blacks bad at setting boundaries, i.e. from the European arrival at liberals or to liberals' current policies, if corrected, to focus on black men?
Because black men have always been the designated underclass and designated boogeymen for the last 300 years. So it goes against policy and culture.
There it is. Thank you for that. And I want to point out one other quick one right here. If you go up to the third bullet point from the bottom, as criminologists Richard Felson and Patrick Cundiff report in a fascinating recent analysis, a 15-year-old male is considerably more likely to be sexually assaulted than a woman over 40.
That makes sense.
Yeah. So just wanted to put that out. So that's important to know and important to understand. And it goes along with what I just showed as far as the CDC numbers, right? But again, we're debunking stereotypes. And when you factor in the percentage of black men that are incarcerated, based on the numbers, you find that black men are actually the most vulnerable, even in regard to sexual assault in prisons. Shout out to ghetto users. Scholars really preaching tonight. Appreciate that. Let's see what's next. Oh, okay. There we go. That's the end of it. So that's everything that we've, and mind you, that's just that took me about 20 minutes.
That's just one clip, huh?
That's 20 minutes. I didn't even delve into papers that I had written that go into more detail on different things. That was just 20 minutes of, let me pull together some charts and let's go through, some of the stereotypes about men, about black men in particular.
Yeah, like Austin Holloman said, it's that bad. Okay.
Yeah.
It's that bad.
It absolutely is. So again, I know some people walk away and all they see is victimization, and I'm saying, look, this is the reality of Black male life.
Yeah.
And we have to be able to understand the reality to craft a response to it. To make sure that our response to it is realistic, but also to just basically understand what's going on. Because when you talk about something like passport bros, when we generically say that you have Black men that are leaving this country for a reason,
right?
It's not just women's behavior.
No, it's not.
And I'm not downplaying how important that is, but I'm saying it's much more going on than just that.
Yeah. Randall Robinson said all Black men should leave America.
Damn.
It's that bad.
Yeah, he's one of the original passport bros. And as a prominent activist, for him to say that when he made that shift, that was groundbreaking. I don't know if you met him. You probably have.
I never met him. No.
Okay. Well, that was all I wanted to cover tonight, because I really just wanted to put some info in you guys' hand. One of the things I notice is I get people saying to me, well, you don't say this enough, you don't say that enough. And I'm saying, I think I've done 500 shows. I'm nowhere near BGS. I mean, shit. BGS. How many do you have?
Oh, last count. Oh, the last count on all my channels, I think the last count was 7,000, maybe.
Ooh, shit.
Maybe. I'm
7,000?
Yeah. Shows and videos. Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah. I think I have. Jesus. I probably have what? I think I have like 1,500 live streams alone. So.
Ooh, God. See, I have probably about. I think I'm somewhere around 500.
Yeah.
And I keep saying, I have said this, I have said that. Well, I haven't heard you say it. Okay. Well, I wanted to just pull together a show where I can say, look, I'm gonna put a good amount of data on some stereotype breaking information and just throw that at y'all, so you have reference points for it, so you have points you can argue, but also points you can reflect on in terms of how some of these issues may affect your own life.
Yeah. You see, especially Black female scholars actually hide this data. It's there.
Yeah. This is one of the reasons that, when I came out of graduate school, I was so furious with some of the people I had learned from, and definitely some of the ideologies I had learned, because when I started to run into just the raw data, I realized just how much I was lied to. And I said, well, if I've been lied to, I wonder how many other people have been lied to.
Right. I mean, yeah, if the learned of you don't know it, then it's not passed down to the, the unwashed masses.
The unwashed masses.
Which is why they don't like this space, because we do dig this kind of stuff out.
Yeah.
And present it to the masses.
Yeah. This is something we should have known. This, especially if you've gone to college, you should know this. But 9 times out of 10, you can speak to a feminist who has a doctorate and ask them some of these questions and watch how little they even know about this in terms of what we're talking about here. So
yeah, they were never told.
They were never told,
and they didn't look.
Yeah. Now, I personally want to thank you. Y'all got to know, BGS was willing to jump on probably in the last 20 minutes of the show he was already doing. And he does that a lot in this space, and I want to thank you for it. You don't have to do it, but I appreciate that you do. So I want you people to know, when this brother pops up on folks' stream, he's been grinding all day, and he's been willing to do this.
Yeah.
So thank you, brother.
Yeah. The thing is if you don't, I try to share and I try to jump on people's streams, because you're trying to build an ecosystem that actually help black men. You have to participate. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. It's the only way you can actually make this thing live. That's why it's so successful, because we actually participate in each other's streams.
Yeah.
It's not a one-man, it's not really a one-man army. It can't be.
Let me see. Giogami, I probably mispronounced that. Said if made to pen was used, would it not affect forced paternity and CS? And possibly boys, molest, so on and so forth. I am clearly old because I got to take a minute just to process. It happens to me on Twitter a lot too. Oh yeah, I don't understand what the hell he's saying. But people got to pull me. Oh, Doc, he was just saying this. I'm like, oh,
yeah. Your son probably can, oh, come on, Dad. Probably get like 5 seconds.
I was like, wait a minute. Well, you're right. Hold on. Let me get a pen. Let me write this out.
Translation, huh?
Yeah, But yeah, I think at the end of the day, if this data was really made, not only made available, but people actually used it actively, whether we're talking lawsuits, whether we're talking activism, I do think it would change the dynamic on forced paternity. I do think it would change the dynamic on child support, and on in terms of sexual assault and the other categories. Absolutely. But again, it's one thing to produce the data. It's another thing to have a movement that operationalizes the data.
Right.
So all the things we're seeing now with feminists, when I was in college, when I was in high school, these concepts were coming out. Intersectionality, the Black feminism, these concepts were coming out then. Fast forward 30 years, they've translated into policy. And people get mad at me because they want me to make policy happen right now. I'm saying, well, if it took 30, 40, 50, 60 years for feminists to do it, I don't know how you expect I'm going to do it single-handedly.
Right.
But what I am going to do is gather the data and help create the concepts. And it falls to us to operationalize those concepts, to operationalize that data, and use it to create what you want to see happen in the world. You know what I mean? That's how that has to go.
Yeah. Yeah. It's changing people's worldview with facts.
Yeah.
Kind of get you out of that blue pill conditioning.
Absolutely.
Like Morpheus says, okay, everything you've been told was a lie.
Absolutely. Well, again, man, I appreciate you coming up. Any closing thoughts you want to give about all of this stuff, man?
I mean, that's why we have you here, man, because only a scholar like you has access to this kind of data and this kind of research. And the thing is that most of this stuff is hidden or opaque to most people, to most Black men. But in this platform, it actually reach more guys and actually make more guys aware, so that when women actually come at them like that, they have a response to it, and it changes how they view themselves and also how they view women.
Absolutely.
Because most guys think I can actually John Henry myself through this, okay? Because the playing field is level and fair, and it's not. I keep trying to tell them, the playing field is actually tilted, and not towards you.
Yeah, it's always been a fixed game.
It's a fixed game.
There was just a point where we saw our women be able to play the game differently.
Yeah. Well, yeah. When they're stepping on us as a step stool, it does help.
And the offer is made from white society to allow them to do so. I do put the onus on the structure, on the system of white society, of white supremacy. I do put the onus there. But the other factor to it is, one, there was a choice made, by women to engage it. And then the other thing is, when these options are made available, I don't care if you're talking about welfare from the 50s onward or whatever issues we're talking about, this ends up having a generational effect. And BGS and I talk about this all the time. Right? It's the entitlement that comes about from having an option that your men don't. It builds over generations a worldview about Black male inferiority. So part of the reason I talk about this stuff is not just because women have an advantage that does extend out of white society, but because that advantage over time, over multiple generations, becomes a superiority complex.
Yeah, because a lot of Black men's survival depend on women.
Yeah,
and they know it. Yeah, and they
know it,
and they use it.
Think about the video I played of the man that was driving the car whose face was bleeding.
Right. Yeah. What did she say? I pay the security. I pay the rent on your apartment. Yeah.
Exactly.
Guess what he can't do? He has to. He's got to accept her abuse because he's got no place to go.
Or slowly strategize a leave. But again, we're tempted to dismiss his inability to operate the way she does by simply saying he's not working hard enough. But again, if you go back to that Raj Chetty study, you can see this is much bigger than individual drive. And I'm not dismissing individual drive. You can do quite a bit with it. I don't dismiss it. I don't underestimate it. But you also have to understand the forces operating against you, the environment you're in. You know, not everybody could just pull themselves out of it. As a matter of fact, most people that have, including myself, there's a damn good share of that was just blind
luck. Yeah. You
blind
made
luck.
it across the minefield instead of being blown up.
But I didn't do so because I had some great knowledge about where the landmines were. It was fucking lucky.
Lucky, yeah.
Every time I applied for, especially the first time I applied for college in high school, there was no guarantee that I was going to get accepted, and I didn't go to Harvard or Yale. I went to more elite schools as my graduate studies, you know, came in. Went to Temple, and then I went to Claremont. But prior to that, I went to Cal State Dominguez Hills in LA, which at the time had about a 38% Black student population. Which really, between the fact that they had apartments and they had a lot of fine ass Black women, those are the only two reasons I went. I wanted to go to Atlanta to go to Freaknik, but I knew I wouldn't graduate. I didn't have high motivations to do this shit, man. I went to college because I knew that, you know, there was nothing that I was going to be able to do at 17 years old that would get me out of my mother's house.
Okay.
There's no job I was going to get at Taco Bell or Kenny Shoes that was going to be able to afford me my own place. And the other reason is my mother made it in my family, and I've carried this tradition on, so I shout my mother out on this. My mother said that it was a requirement. Going to college for her was like going from 10th to 11th grade.
Okay.
It was not negotiable. Everybody went to college. You didn't get to make your own decisions as an adult until you finished your bachelor's. That was my mother's outlook. So she'd been telling us, my sister and I, that since we were little kids. So going to college was an expectation, but that didn't mean I was ready for it. I got good grades. School came easy. I didn't really try that hard. And I mainly went to Dominguez because they had apartments and fine ass women. And at the end of the day, every weekend, somebody was throwing a party in one of them apartments, and there wasn't no oversight in that bad boy. Now I went to visit the campus. Them brothers were telling me, "Yeah, look out your window at 5 a.m. Everybody doing a walk of shame." That was why I went. Man, I ain't seen that many Black. I mean, I was 38%. What campus do you know of in California that had damn near 40% of its campus Black?
That is the only one.
That's the only one I had ever heard of.
They're designated. That's the designated Black campus.
Oh yeah. You know, and then Long Beach was right down the street. Cal State Long Beach, huge campus. And at the time, they had a Black Kemetic Black Egyptian fraternity. There was a fraternity and a sorority all at once.
Yep.
And we had the finest women you'd have ever seen in your life. God damn it. Anyway. So that was my motivation for going to school. And the only reason I went to graduate school, because my plan after, when I got to my senior year, I was just going to go get a job at UPS.
Okay.
I didn't have a plan. I wasn't thinking about graduate school. Truth be told, I really couldn't tell you much about what a master's degree actually was because I had no plans to do one.
Okay.
I had a Black male mentor and teacher for the first time in my life that saw potential in me and sent me to graduate school. That was how that went. So I'm not coming at this saying, I did all of this and I knew what I was doing. I walked through that landfill you were talking about. A lot of it was blind luck. I didn't have money. I didn't come from money. I didn't come from a lot of different contacts where people knew my family and hooked us up. I didn't come from none of that.
Yeah.
My mother never made more than $30,000 in her life.
Yeah.
My sister and I are both professors. All of that came about from pure fucking luck.
Yeah.
And my sister got more support than I did, but mainly from teachers at the same schools I went to. Teachers that wouldn't be caught dead sitting in the same room with me alone because they think I was going to rob them, would give her computers, would help her, get in. They had contacts at the college, at the universities, high level universities. They had friends. And they gave her information. No, those folks wouldn't even, man.
They treated her like a white person, huh?
Well, yeah, she was honorary in the sense that she was smart and they liked her. But, for me, they looked at me like I was going, to do something with them or to them. Same teachers, same school. They didn't give me any support. I didn't expect any. I didn't know to ask for any. I just, so it took a while before I found my own motivations.
Yeah, that's why there's so few of you, is because you guys are actually survivors.
But I remember when I came into the space, brothers were talking about, you cats got a silver spoon. I was like, silver spoon? We were on Section 8. I mean, there were just pockets of black men that were able to get through the minefield, but it wasn't because anybody was better or had a plan. Shout out to Great I-9. He says dual economy of opportunities. Absolutely. We just kind of made it through. But I went to the same schools where brothers were being put into special ed. I truthfully don't know how they didn't put me in it. I mean, I had good grades. I wasn't an exceptional athlete, but I played various sports. But I just kind of slipped through the cracks. You remember when you watched Spook Who Sat by the Door?
Right.
And the FBI agents were talking about which of the black guys might make it to become an FBI agent. And they said, well, Freeman just always we always forget about Freeman.
Well, forget about Freeman, yeah.
He scores high on athletics and on, his tests. That was me.
But he wasn't noticeable.
He wasn't noticeable. Yes. And I wasn't like that because I planned it like Freeman did. I was just like that. I was introverted. I still am. I'm a nerd. I'm not the most gregarious in the room. I had game though, but that's a whole different thing. We ain't got to talk about all that, But I mean, that was it. I just slipped through the cracks, and a lot of us, and I won't say a lot of us, a number of us did. But that was no guarantee in and of itself. I know brothers that got doctorates that are working at car washes.
Yeah.
For a variety of reasons. Yeah. False accusations being one of them. Rogues is badass cobras. That's right. Yeah. But no, man, I'm just, all I'm saying is, at the end of the day, this information needs to be out because, too many of us are just riding by the seat of our pants. We're running through minefields, and even those of us that get through aren't necessarily tied into any greater networks. We just got through as an individual.
Yeah, I remember FD Signifier was on with Mr. Z. The first thing out of his mouth is that he was saying that black women are actually dangerous to black women. The biggest danger to black women are black men. That's what he said.
Yeah.
That's why he has stats like this that prove it wrong.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's why I want to put those stats up. That's what you bring up to people. I don't care if you're sitting in a class or you're having a debate or an argument. If you decide that you want to publicly debate these issues and that's your choice, the data is available, but you got to go get it. And it's going to be sequestered off because this is the kind of data that does not secure people the resources they want, especially in the political market.
Yeah.
Right.
Yep.
So when you and yeah, Spain, man, he said, damn, he did say that, didn't he? Yeah, he did. That's why I want you to see that we're talking about a couple hundred people a year. When people make statements like that, be precise and show them. And challenge them to articulate where they're getting their sources from.
Yeah, the flu is more dangerous to black women than black men.
Yes. And of course, if you read The Man Not, you find out when you look at that same data set, going back to the 1980s, there were years where black men were killed by their partners in greater numbers than women.
Yep.
You know what I mean? So there's a lot out there that needs to be revealed. It needs to be found. And truth be told, there's only a small handful of people willing to go look for it. So I'm not up here saying I know it all. In fact, I'm asking y'all, what you guys routinely do, to share what information you run across. Brothers give me stories and you get this too. I send you stories, articles, videos all day. And that's what we need.
Yeah, it's crowdsourcing. Yeah. Many eyes.
Yeah. So anyway, man, shout out to Officer Faulkner in the building. I see you, man. But I appreciate you coming up. I just wanted to get this out. I hope the brothers will benefit from it. Again, we got to start with a clarity, and we got to operationalize this data.
Yeah.
To understand how we can use it and how we can advance and improve the quality of life for black boys and men.
Yeah.
We first have to understand what that quality of life actually is.
Yeah. You got to start telling the truth about black men and black boys.
Hey, it's real. Shout out to Great I9. Says more black women die falling downstairs. Own furniture than more black women heel on the side of the sidewalk. That would be some cold shit if it was true, though. You know,
it might be.
That would be a cold stat right there, boy. More black women die for breaking their heel on the street corner than. Oh man, they would shut it down, man. Ain't nobody gonna hear that. That shit would be hilarious. But that's what I felt when he said, you know, more black men, you have a greater chance of dying in a flood or being struck by lightning. I had never thought of it that way. And then I looked up the data on both and I was like, he was right. I thought he was just making a flippant statement. He said it because he had looked at it. He studied it. I was like, he is absolutely right. So anyway, but have a good night, brother. I appreciate you.
All right, Doc. All right, Doc.
All right, man. Peace.
Peace out.
All right, folks. Thank you. Share whatever information or reflections or thoughts you have in the comment section. I appreciate the support. Thank you to everybody that's contributed. Please make sure you like, share, subscribe, join, or donate. Share the video. Support the channel so we can continue to bring you this data, bring you these concepts, these ideas. And I'm imploring you to share your thoughts and reflections on what we can do with this so we can build it together. All right. Hope you all have a good night. Peace. I am here to tell you, brothers, we are not criminals by birth, perennial rapists, incapable intellects, man-children, sperm donors, child support wellsprings, success objects, walking phalluses, ATM machines, lottery tickets, unintelligent henchmen, valueless assassins, pro bono mercenaries, unpaid bodyguards, interchangeable stepfathers, child discipline proxies, unpaid repairmen, workhorses, emotional tampons, or any other socially accepted dehumanizing stereotype. We are thinkers, inventors, innovators, leaders, fathers, and men. Embrace your humanity, know your worth, and extend your time, attention, and resources only to those who genuinely respect you. And remember, your worth is not defined by meeting other people's narcissistic and selfish and unrealistic needs. You define your worth. Peace.